rainbow trout. I had a feeling if I put the camera down, they might be tricked into thinking that this might be feeding time. To see this many trout at one time is a pretty amazing thing. All right, we got Mom. She's coming by to say hi. She just flew behind the trees.
There she is. There she is.
Here she goes. She's got a blackbird chasing her.
Yeah.
And there she goes to land. That's what you get to see when you come here to the Decorah Fish Hatchery. So let's look at a few more of these. You can see the swirls. They're splashing the camera lens here. Is that, yeah, you can spread it with your hand. Just grab some in your hand and throw it out there. All right, so they will see that, and you can see them diving and grabbing the food, kind of like the water will boil. Go ahead and throw a little bit more in there.
Is this the only fish hatchery in the state?
No, there's multiple fish hatcheries in Iowa. Look at that.
Look at them! Oh my gosh!
Pretty neat. You can see the rainbow colors and the spots on them. All right. Well, let's keep going over here.
Scared me.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, John.
Hello, Brian. I'm doing just fine. Let's get this way here, so a little bit better lighting. So tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing around here.
Well, obviously, one of the adults is sitting in the tree right now.
Yeah. So Mom Decorah's here.
Yeah. For about 3 weeks before the Fledge, they pretty much stayed closer to the nest. But since the Fledge, it seems like they're spending 5 to 6 hours at least per day here. Both, the male and the female are doing that. So.
Yeah.
And today the people got to see the osprey decided to flex its muscles and attack.
Osprey-like fish too, right?
Yeah, but they were attacking the female sitting in the pine tree. They've either sat in the pine tree or in the maple tree or in the pine tree right by the office.
Okay.
For the shop.
Right above where Brian is, those pine trees back there. That's where Mom was earlier. And I got reports that both Mom and DM2 were sitting on the maple tree earlier.
Yep. Oh, so, today?
Yeah, this morning.
He's been here more and more. I don't know if he's just following her or what, but you can usually tell if it's him or her. If there's only one in there, if he's nervous if you stop underneath him and stuff.
Right.
Where she just ignores you. So you can tell the two just by that.
Right.
But he, throughout the nesting cycle, he would sit here too, but not as much as she would. He would stay more on the fringe of the hatchery.
Okay.
And stuff.
That's neat.
I have a question about the fish.
Question about the fish we have here?
I don't know any answers for that.
Okay, I was wondering, do they put them here as eggs or do they come as small fish
that's a good question. We're actually a rearing facility. So the trout program in Iowa is not big enough that we maintain multiple rootstocks, and we maintain multiple places to incubate eggs. So our Manchester Fish Hatchery, which is about 2 hours south of us, they spawn the fish or incubate the eggs, and then they transfer the fish to us at about 3 inches. And then it takes us it's a total of 18 months to go from egg to catchable sized trout. So the catchable sized trout's 10.5 to 11 inches.
What did you say, 18 months?
Mm-hmm. So like these fish in this raceway are about 4 inches right now. They'll be used next June. and they were spawned in September of 2020. So we had everything we do is actually a year and a half in advance. So like any of the 10.5 to 11-inch fish that you see on the hatchery right now, or that the eagles are eating, by November they'll all be gone. So like what I tell everybody, to be honest, 2021 is irrelevant for us as production because we already have our fish ready, and we're gearing up to get ready for 2022. So in this raceway there's 8,000 fish. In this raceway there's 30,000 fish because they're fingerlings, they take less space. And so as these continue to grow, we'll continue to divide them and spread them out. So by October, November, all our raceways will be full again, but they'll all be full of little fish.
Where's the bigger fish at?
Manchester Hatchery has the bluefish. Our big fish are in the center pond, and the biggest one in there is probably 7.5, 8 pounds. Every year we cull about 900 fish out of our broodstock population. We divide them amongst the three trout hatcheries, and so we stock 1 to 2 of those fish out per stream per week to allow anglers a chance to catch trophy-sized fish.
Is that the place where Mom and DM2 eat out of that?
No. That's a frequently asked question. Is, well, that's the one they take. Okay, how much does Mom weigh? 9 to 11 pounds.
Yeah.
So can you picture picking up a 7-pound fish and flying it 2.5 miles? No. That's what they often, way back, they used to say, they took a cat. Again, what's even a farm cat weigh compared to their weight? They have tried to pick them up when we've had them die and put them in the pond. You know, they flush into the pond, and they just can't pick them up. So what they do is they sit in that tree just like you see. What she's doing is she's waiting for Steve to feed her. So right now they're walking around, they're venting all the dead fish. Because we have dirty water, we can't feed. But they're netting all the dirty fish and flushing down the silver pipe, which they know in about 20 minutes they'll come out the pond behind her, and she'll swoop down and take them. They're smart enough to know if we take the net off the feed trailer, they're going to get fed. I mean, because you watch their whole dispositions when they watch us come out and we're feeding. If they see us pick the net up, their attention span definitely got more acute. So, you know, I tell everybody, eagles, you guys all give eagles better credit than they deserve. They're a turkey vulture, very pretty. But that being said, they're not stupid by no means. I mean, I'm a firm believer they recognize the 3 of us that work here. To be honest, I mean, you guys all say, did you see what they did on the camera, or did you see this? None of us watch it. But we see them every day. I mean, we see them for real. Your guys' world is this, we're this.
Right.
And so, but they recognize us, and just like that, we know between which ones do. And she will actually start, the last couple of years, she'll start.
We can hear Mom. Yeah.
And believe it or not, she does. She will, when it's just us, she'll start chirping like, feed me.
Well, she doesn't try to come in and fish off of here. She waits.
Out of the raceways? No. Their wingspan's, say, 6.5 feet. This is, you know, normally we used to have baffles in every keyway, so that was an 8-foot square. So they fly down, and, you know, that's too big. They're a jet. They're not a fighter jet. They're a jumbo jet. So they'll take fish out of the pond. But this year she started doing something different this spring that we watched. That she would land on the concrete, duck under the wires, and walk in and get a fish, and then come back out. She's never been the original male was much more efficient at catching fish. She's never, since she's been here since 2008, she's never been quite as efficient. But she's never usually walked in. juveniles, we watch juveniles do it. Over the years that most people don't understand, we've actually saved several juveniles because they've jumped in the raceways and can't get out. And so they get hypothermic. Because our water right now is running about, this year's, it's actually a lot warmer than in years past, but it's about 57 degrees. So within 5 to 10 minutes, they can be hypothermic. So Robin actually, Brom has pictures of one, and she helped me and the weight training guy for Upper Iowa University fish one out, and I just made sure she didn't post me the pictures because knowing the eagle people would go crazy to see that.
What are you talking about, Brian?
Yeah, but she actually was hypothermic. But that eagle, friend, we actually fished that juvenile out 5 different times. And then she figured out how to get out, so then she would just jump in and get a fish and then jump back out. But it took her 5 times to figure it out.
I think a couple years ago I was out here and there was a tank and it said lunkers. Is that right?
What's that?
It said lunkers, like.
Yeah, can you show us some of those bigger fish?
Yeah, you just gotta walk
Let's
down
do
there.
that quick, and then we're just about out of time here, so we'll take a look at some of the larger trout here. I can see the larger fins right here. Brian's going to show us where the biggest ones are, so I better.
If you guys want to know, like we just put out all these educational panels this year, and if you read them, it'll tell you a lot about trout and what we go through.
And Mom is up in the maple tree as we're walking down here. She sees Brian, right, and she recognizes him even though he's in a crowd.
Believe it or not, they do. When I worked in Idaho, we had a pair that wintered at the hatchery. And a friend of mine was a wildlife photographer, and he tried to get pictures of them. And we could walk within 10, 12 feet of them. And they wouldn't let him walk up to them. And so we even put him in our uniforms, because we all wore the same uniforms. So, like these fish will be stocked out in November.
I think we're getting closer to the big ones.
Yeah, we'll see if we can see them. The ponds always stay the dirtiest.
And they'll come to food here, right?
Yeah.
You got a little bit of food left? Okay. We're going to see if we can see some of the bigger ones.
There's right now there's about 350 of them left in here. So you'll want to hook. Go just a little bit farther out. Yeah, nope, they don't want to. There's about 350 fish that are in here that are anywhere from about 2.5 to 7 pounds. One question, you can see that one.
Right there.
One question a lot of people always ask, because they eat, the pond over there is the one that they take the fish from behind you, that they always ask us, what's in our food and is, anything gonna hurt them? These fish are a food fish for humans, so we can't put any chemicals or any additives that aren't approved by the FDA. So it's the same thing for, basically the eagles. There's no chemicals in the fish or in the food that would affect the eagles. But early on, when they first started, everybody started watching them on the internet, that was a big concern for everybody. There's something in these, it's not organic or whatever, and there's something in our food that would hurt them.
We got one hungry trout here.
see how black it is? That shows you that it's in a stress mode, and it's in because of it's in mud because of the rain we got a couple days ago. So
Does it lighten up when it
if,
comes out of stress?
yeah, if the water was clear, they're very colored up.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks so much, Brian.
You betcha.
Thanks for the tour. We'll be back and we'll do one more of these, I believe, at noon, right? No?
No, we're doing 2 of them 3.
Okay, that's right. Next stop here is going to be N3. So we're going to wrap things up here, and we'll head over to the new nest that Mom and DM2 used, and where D37, 38, and 39 fledged, and maybe we'll get some views of them here later today. We'll see. We'll see if I get the light settings on this camera a little bit better. I can see that things are kind of bright and washed out. So we'll play around with that for a little bit, and we'll see you around 9 o'clock.
And if you guys want a real tour, I can give you a real tour tomorrow if you want, or later today, whatever.
That sounds great. Little tour here, and we are going to put a spotting scope. We'll see what happens, but we are not too far from the Decorah Clinic, Gunderson Clinic, and the Walmart parking lot here, and there's a really nice trail here, the Trout Run Trail entrance, and just going to kind of show you guys, pan over here. We might see some bikers in a little bit, but the trail is over there, and the parking lot and entrance is over here. So just going to give you a quick little interview update here as to what we saw here when we did this this morning. So when we came here this morning, just as we were leaving the hatchery, Mom Decorah took off the tree. And that's obviously when the osprey came back, because the osprey won't come and try to fish if an eagle is there. So anyway, so we left to come over here and do this tour, and as soon as we got here, Mom Decorah was in the tree. So she's playing games and helping us out here. So we'll see what happens this time if we get lucky. But Mom was there, and then all of a sudden DM2 showed up in the dead tree that we'll take a look at a little bit later. And then after DM2 showed up, just as we were packing up and getting ready to leave, the young, probably D37, D38, or D39, 2 of them showed up and were food begging and running up to the nest. And I'm not sure if they got fed or not, but we'll see. It's hard to tell. We don't have a camera on this nest, so we can't verify some of that stuff unless somebody's actually over here on the trail, either taking photos or watching and giving us their report. We can hear the young, so we might hear young eagles food begging, so we'll kind of wait and see what we find out here. But we're going to take a walk over there, and I'll just take a quick give you a little quick intro here as to what happened. So we got some bikers coming through, and that's pretty normal around here. But basically what happened, just going to give a quick summary as we're walking. We're going to pick up here and start walking with our mobile broadcasting unit here. And forgive me if this is a little bit shaky. I will keep the camera as steady as I can. So right here in front of us you can't see it, but right here is the trail, This part of the trail is going over past Walmart and over towards some farmland, and this part goes over to the boat landing in the park, city park. Right on the other side of these trees here is the Upper Iowa River, and that is why DM2 and Mom are even over here in this area. We believe that they probably have been building on this nest for about 2 years. We always wondered where DM2 took off, and we wondered where he would go. And this was the year, this was 2019 was the year that we think they probably first started building on this nest. And that was the year that we had the black fly problem. And the eaglets fledged or fell and fledged early, and they went into rehab. So it was an early year. DM2 pretty much, we didn't see a whole lot of him after that, and they always kind of disappeared over the hillside, kind of coming over this area. Down Trout Run Creek, and Trout Run Creek runs into the Upper Iowa River right over here. So we believe that for like maybe about 2 years now, they've been working on that nest, and we started to see some nest building in N2B in November of 2020, and things were looking good. Unfortunately, we had some delayed construction work that was happening at the hatchery, and you know, we always wonder those limits of how the eagles handle human activity, and Mom is a lot more likely to be able to handle that than DM2 was, and we'll never know. We can't talk eagle talk, so we won't know exactly why they came over here, but they did decide to come over here and spent less time over at N2B in the hatchery, and they raised 3 young here this year, D37, 38, and 39. We know that there's 3. We've got some great camera photographers that have been keeping us up to date, so we're going to head over that way right now, and we can talk a little bit about what happened with the eagles, and we're going to listen to see if we can hear any of them, and watch out for bicyclers too.
Yes.
Also, if you've got open-toed shoes, it's best to stay out of the grass. That's the wild parts of around here, even though it's mowed. The short stuff in the grass. So while we're walking here, I guess you know, one thing that we got a biker coming. Move left. This morning we were cheering them on when they came by.
Like the Tour de France.
Right. So this is a dead tree that we'll take a look at, and we're hoping that they basically will come back to N2B. I mean, that's what our hope is. We don't know what. It's quite a bit of walking here, so I think I'm going to put this on pause. If you want to just hold that for a second. We will revisit you when we get to the spot. I'm just going to put this on pause.
Seeing a white head.
All right. Back live again. We just got out to, walked out the trail, and we got to the corner here. If we look forward, we can see, well, some dead trees in the distance. Right in the center of where I have this screen right now is the nest tree. and we've got a spotting scope. I'm going to be real quiet here. We've got 2 fledglings, one in the nest and one in the dead tree.
It's an adult in the dead tree.
Okay, an adult in the dead tree. So we'll be quiet. Heard a little food begging cry there from one of the young. So as I mentioned before, right when we got out here on our tour this morning, both Mom and DM2 came, and then some of the young had found them and were looking for food. So just, you know, we're on the trail. We kept walking, and down this way is the dog park, the city dog park along the trail. We've got somebody coming along here. So a little bit more about the story here. Let's talk about the eagles. I think where we left off before, we talked about how eagles set up shop over here in this nest, and we thought that they were taking about maybe 2 years to build on this thing. We knew that they were someplace, and Sue and Benny Bruling alerted us that they had been watching this nest over here, and it looked like it was active, so we started spending some more time looking at it. And sure enough, what we've been doing in November, December, and January was basically coming out here and watching to see when the eagles would show up, and then verifying with the camera and other people over at the hatchery whether or not they were actually at 2 places at one time or not. So by just deduction and absence and presence between both sites, we pretty much verified when we could see them on camera over at the hatchery that, and identify them when they would leave. We would see them show up over here, and they were flying off over into this direction. So we did verify that they are indeed Mom Decora and DM2, and so that's where that part of the story ended. And basically we've been documenting this nest. We've got some walkers here if you guys want to make some room, and we might have bikers too, so we'll make room. So I'll just mention here that we've got a spotting scope set up here with a tripod, and that's basically how we've been monitoring. Some folks have been using their own cameras with good telephoto lenses, but you can get a pretty good shot of the eagles. I might try to see if there's any chance that we can digiscope with this webcam. I don't know how that will work, but we've been doing a little bit of that. But we are on public property here. I just want to mention to people and remind people that the nest is on private property, and the access to these nests and to do what we do, it all depends on relationships with property owners and you know what happens there. So always be respectful of property owners and don't trespass. Like I said, we're on public property here right now, and we can see a portion of the nest and a little bit into the lives of the eagles right now when they're not at the hatchery. So we've been keeping up. We know that 3 eaglets were probably 3 eggs were laid, and that was pretty much what Mom Decora, that's been her norm. And then they did hatch, all 3, so we've had confirmation from videos and photographs from everyone that 3 eaglets did hatch from the nest. So that's where we get D37, D38, and D39. And now we see 3 eagles at any one time, up to 3 eagles. So it looks like they've all fledged. They've been out of the nest tree, and they're in the stage now where the parents are leading them further and further from the nest. They're learning how to, well, they've been begging for food for quite some time. That's one of the things that we do, is just listen for eaglets that are looking for food from the parent. And they can get quite aggressive. If you guys have been watching our Decora North nest, you'll notice that as soon as food is brought to the nest or any place close, or they will chase the parent and they will basically attack them for that food. They do have crops, so they can go quite some time without eating again, but you can tell when they're a little bit hungry. Hangry maybe.
Each other for the food.
Right, and they will fight each other, and you'll see the mantling and all that. So right now we have, I think as we mentioned, we have in the dead tree, it's really pretty hard to see with this. Let's see, who's my person with the remote? Ken, if you can, let's try zooming this in all the way, and you have to point it at the front of the camera. There we go. There we go. So we are looking, actually you can see two trees, and then in the center between them there's something that looks like it's sticking up. That's actually the nest in the tree. The quality with the brightness here, there's what looks like a little pinhead sticking up. That is the nest in the tree between two other trees, and it's dead, so we're not seeing those branches like we do between the other trees. All we're doing is seeing a little dot there, which is the nest. If we pan over just a little bit into the space between the trees, won't be able to see this detail, but there's a dead tree there that the parents sit in and the young are in. So the Upper Iowa Oxbow is here. It's a beautiful area, lots of waterfowl. We can see, why eagles and other raptors come to this point of the river. We can back out. Thank you, Ken. So let's see if are we trained on the nest with the eagles? I'm just going to see if there's any chance that this camera might be able to pick up. This is called digiscoping. And it looks like it might work here, but
Can we hold that thing for you? Can you use two hands?
I'm good.
Okay.
I thought I saw a tree in there. We tried. If I had the brightness settings, was able to check that. Might be possible to do something like that. Well, we tried. We've got a Regal 100 millimeter scope here with variable, I think it's 27 to 67 zoom on here. So we got a pretty powerful scope just to see that. Well, hey, this was for you guys. Any questions that you guys have about Mom and DM2 and what they're doing or how they got here?
Do they do any banding of these eagles?
So banding of the eagles would require us to find a place that they would come to, where we could try to trap them and get a hold of them and band them. In the past, with the young, what's happened is we've trained them at the hatchery to come to the fish. So we train them at the hatchery to come to the fish, and then we've got a noose trap called a Pad-M.
Or Pan-Am, it kind of depends on who you're talking
Pad-M, and it's got little nooses of fishing line, about 50 pound, and that noose will tighten on their ankles and their toes, and that's how they'll come in. They'll get caught on those, and then we'll run in there. And I think you guys have probably maybe seen the special on Iowa Public Television and other broadcasts that we've had of the trapping process.
So how old would they be when they come to the
typically we will do that anywhere probably about 3 to 4 weeks after they've fledged. I think it's been about 3 to 4 weeks after they've fledged, and then we watch them for quite some time after that before they disperse in the fall.
Yeah, they disperse at an average of, I want to say, 75 days after fledge, or 186 days overall. So at least that's the eagles that Brett has studied from Decorah is what we've seen.
So Amy Reese is answering that question there. Thank you, Amy. So as you can see, we're watching some of the fledglings, and one in the nest, and one we could turn the scope and look over at the dead tree and see them. But any other questions about the Decorah eagles? I mean, it's great that we're seeing them at the hatchery. It's great that we're seeing them at the hatchery. We just this morning, everybody reported that Mom and DM2 were in the maple tree, and then they were around until right before 9 o'clock when we came over here. Mom flew over. DM2 must have already been here when we got here, they were both one in the nest tree and one in the dead tree, and then the young came after our morning visit here. So, they're around. This is part of their territory. They're still hanging out in Decorah. They're not usually in the nest this time of year, except for the reason that they're here with young. So just the fact that they show up at N2B once in a while is good. So you guys can do the best you can to get the message to Mom and DM2 that they're supposed to nest in a live tree back at the fish hatchery where all those fish are. It's that real estate saying, it's all about location, location, location. Fish, 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 right? All right. Well, I think that will end our N3 visit broadcast. Thanks for joining us. I think our next broadcast is going to be at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We got River Valley Raptors with their I think this mic is live. Can you guys hear me? All right. Well, welcome to our 3 o'clock show, and I know this is going to be a treat for you guys. We got Joe and Abby Crumry, and they're River Valley Raptors. So let's give. Can we clap? First, okay with that? So they've got a treat for you. A variety of raptors here. I hear that we have some kestrel, and I know some of the others, but I'm going to leave the surprise up, so you guys will get to see it. So anyway, I won't stand here any longer. Thank you, and we'll let you come up here. You can talk this way, or if you're loud enough, you can do it without the mic too.
Is this loud enough? Everybody hear me? Yeah. We're going to try to do it without the mic. That way we can walk around with the birds. So you guys can get a little up close. So yeah, like you said, my name is Joe Crumry. My wife Abby and I founded River Valley Raptors a couple of years ago. It's been probably 4 now that our foundation's been going. Just a little bit about us before we get to the birds. I know everybody's excited to get to the birds, but we gotta learn the history of where we came from and how we got into this, right? So, me and Abby are both originally from the Driftless area. She's from Winona, I'm from Mondovi, Wisconsin, right in the heart of the Driftless area. So after we both went to college at Stevens Point, did other jobs in the eastern part of the state, and we so loved the Driftless area that we wanted to move back. Wanted to be around our families because we were starting a family. You can see my little daughter Lila there tags along with us too. She might run around during the program, but she's been to more of these than most of you guys have, so we really wanted to move back to this area, and that's where we got River Valley Raptors, because we do really like to talk about how raptors use this river valley and how this driftless area and the river is such a special place from a part of the rest of the world. So that's really one of the things we like to focus on. And starting out 4 years ago, we decided we're just going to do this little side thing. We're just going to have a couple of raptors and kind of just do school programs that come up with stuff like this. We started out with 3 raptors. Now I have 16. So, needless to say, that exploded way faster than we wanted it to. But there was such a draw, there was such a need for us to come out and do programs. Before this whole pandemic thing, we were doing 2 and 3 and 4 programs every weekend. Throughout the whole summer. So we needed that rotation of those birds, just to give those birds a break. Otherwise, just those 3 birds that have just been working their tails off, traveling around the state in an area just to kind of do that education we did. So we got a variety of birds. We brought 4 different raptors for you today. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the first raptor. She's in this box right here. And she's going to be a type of hawk. Now, I'm assuming most of you guys are friends of raptors, right? You either watch the Eagle Cam or the Kestrel Cam or things like that. So we're going to try to give you guys some neat information that you guys might not learn off of some of those cameras, right? So we got a species of hawk, and we have 7 different species of hawks that live in the upper Midwest here. Do you guys know those species? I heard red tail, sharp shin, Cooper sock, broadwing. It's like an auction. Who can give the best one?
Red shoulder.
Red shoulders. We said sharp shinned already. Said Coopers. Said broadwing. We don't get Swainson's, not sometimes, every once in a while, Mike, but I don't count that one. Huh? Nope, just the hawks. Goshawk. Chicken hawk is another name for a red tail. It's a colloquial name for a red tail. But we got 6. We're missing a migrant that comes down from the Arctic. They're about the size of a red tail. They got really rough legs. A rough-legged hawk, right? So those are the seven different types of hawks that we can find in the upper Midwest, at least in Wisconsin, which is where we primarily do our education. I gotta remember I'm in Iowa now. But I'm gonna go ahead and get out our first bird, and we're gonna see if you guys can identify what type of bird she is. Anybody know what type of bird it is? Is it a red tail? Doesn't have a red tail. Nope. That could be a trick because red tails don't have tails the first year of their life. Red tails the first year of their life. This is a northern goshawk. Yep. So this bird's name is Ariel. She is a northern goshawk. Now, hawks in general, so goshawks, red tails, they're perfect examples of what makes raptors raptors. So if you think about eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, all those different raptors versus a robin or versus a blue jay, there's 3 things that make them separate from those other songbirds. What's one of them? Talons, yeah. Sharp, gripping, grasping talons, right? The word raptor actually comes from the Latin word rapier, which means to grip, to grasp, or in how you use it, to seize. That's exactly what they use those talons for. They grab a hold of prey and they crush. That's how they capture their prey animals. So that's a big thing that makes them raptors. What's another one that makes them raptors? The beak. The beak. What about their beak? It's downward curved, right? A woodpecker's beak is sharp, but not in this downward curve. Yeah, that beak is a meat hook. That's exactly what they use that beak for, right? There's not a bird alive that has teeth in their mouth. They just don't have teeth, so they can't chew anything. So they need to be able to rip off small enough chunks so she can swallow them whole. Now, a small enough chunk for her is about the size of a large mouse. That's a small enough chunk for her. She can swallow that whole. So we got sharp, gripping, grasping talons. We got a downward curve to their beak. What's the third thing that separates them? Eyes. What about their eyes? They got a little more forward facing to their eyes. But it's how they can see and how powerful that eyesight is that really separates them. They got long range eyesight. Yeah, so their eyesight's about, depending on what study you read, 7 to 10 times better than a human's. It's been said today that they could read a newspaper at over a football field away. Now, some of us can't read a newspaper at 3 feet. Yeah, because you got to use cheaters. But the neat thing about raptors is they don't have any degenerative eye diseases. Their eyes do not get bad. If you think about it, their eyes go bad, they die. You can't find food. So that genetically gets selected out of their system. So there's not a raptor alive today that has bad eyes, unless it's in captivity, a wild raptor. So yeah, those are the three things that make raptors raptors. Think about the talons, the beak, and the eyes. They're all separate from all those other little birds out there. So. Now, a little more about goshawks in particular. Ariel here, I actually have had Ariel since she's been about 8 days old. Along with running our business, me and my wife are both falconers also. So we fly birds to hunt with them. So she is going to be my hunting partner for this fall. So I located a nest really early this spring, and then with permission from the DNR and the federal government, I actually climbed the nest tree and took her from the nest in the wild. Now it seems a little weird that we are able to do that, but it works twofold. I get my falconry bird, and she's got almost 100% chance of survival, and her brother and her sister that were also in the nest, their chances of survival went up also, because now there's one less mouth for mom to feed. And mom was not happy, let me tell you that. I got a couple of scars to come back, so I earned you, didn't I? Yeah. Her nest was about 40 foot up in the air. So northern goshawks have a very specific habitat requirement that they need to order to nest. They need almost pristine woodland with very clear undergrowth with no brush, no nothing, so they can fly through the forest. They are a woodland raptor. You hardly ever see goshawks flying out in the open like in an open field. They hunt things in the woodland, right? So they need that open, no brush to zig and zag and dodge those trees and chase down their favorite food, which is grouse. They love to eat and catch grouse in the Northwoods. Her nest was 50 miles from the UP-Michigan border. That's how far north I had to go to find one. So, now Ariel's in her juvenile plumage. She is a first-year bird. She's only about 2.5 months old. And she is fully grown and ready to go. What am I going to hunt with it? Yeah. So my two main hunt are rabbit and squirrels, cottontail rabbit and squirrels. But with a bird of this type, it opens up my variety a lot. So I can chase pheasants, I can chase ducks, jackrabbits, quail if I can find them, if I take a trip out west or something like that. How they hunt those flying birds like that. One more thing about her plumage, she's got this dark brown kind of cream color to her. As she ages, she's going to change colors. She's going to get like a slate blue gray back to her. She's going to get this very kind of grayish white color to her breast with, instead of polka dots like she has now, she's going to get like streaky on her breast. And then her eyes are kind of like a tannish blue color now. They're going to change into yellow, and then they're going to change into like this ruby kind of blood red color when she's an adult. She's full grown. Yep. She's full grown.
Will her beak change color as well?
Nope, her beak is going to stay the same. So I got plenty more birds to give you guys. I'm going to flip it over to Abby, and she's going to work on the next species, right?
Yep.
Yep.
How long do you expect to have her?
I'll have her pretty much forever.
No, how old is her?
Well, their lifespan in captivity, she'll be 20 years plus. Yep. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Alright, so you guys got to see a hawk. Next out, we're going to take out a falcon for you guys. And then lastly, we do have an owl. We have an eagle at home, a golden eagle, but he's still getting trained for programs. So at some point, we'll be able to bring all 4 of the major groups of raptors. But until then, I'm going to grab out our falcon. We have 3 falcons you can find, at least in Wisconsin, I think in Iowa too. You guys know what they are? Peregrine. Kestrel. What's that in between one?
Merlin.
Merlin, yeah. So, I'm going to get out the smallest falcon that we have in North America. This is Cyrus, short for Osiris. You guys know what he is? He's the American kestrel. Now, he is estimated to be maybe 6 weeks old. So his tail hasn't quite grown out yet. And he's still got a little bit of fluff on top of his head. And actually, he's only been with us for about a week. He came to us last Thursday. And what happened was they were tearing down a church steeple when they discovered this nest of baby birds. So kestrels are cavity nesters. Oftentimes people put up kestrel boxes for them to nest in. Well, this family had decided to nest in a church steeple, which would have been a great idea, except that they wanted to tear it down. Now, unfortunately, they'd already torn down just enough of the steeple where the nest was no longer safe against predators. So they called the DNR, who called Joe because he used to work for the DNR. And Joe said, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. So we were able to take 2 of the babies, and we are now, instead of taking them to a rehab center, we're actually going to fly them for falconry so that they can go out, fly, and hunt before they go back to the wild. So he will get to go back and be a free bird again. But he's first going to learn all those great hunting skills and hunting techniques before that. Now, the reason his name is Osiris is because his sister is named Isis. And so if you've ever heard of the Egyptian mythology, Isis and Osiris are brother and sister. Now, really cool thing about these guys is that males and females are actually different colors. So in most raptors, males and females look exactly the same. But in the kestrel, the males actually have this beautiful blue color right on the edge of their wings, whereas the female would have the brown and black on her wings, as well as a brown and black striped tail.
They change colors when they're more adult?
They will not. So actually, kestrels are one of the few birds that, as a falconer, you typically have to go trap a young bird. They want you to take a first-year bird because you're giving that bird the best chance of survival. Anywhere from 50 to 90% of raptors don't make it to see an adult age. So by taking a young bird, you're helping it through that hardest part of their life before letting it go back to the wild. The only reason kestrels are different is because it can be really difficult to tell the difference between a first-year kestrel and a 5-year-old kestrel. So, yeah. Now, what animal likes to eat kestrels? Yeah, so in a nest, it could be predated by raccoons and mammals like that. It could also be taken by larger birds. So Cooper's hawks would gladly come. Owls would gladly come and take a baby kestrel or even an adult kestrel. So now what we're going to do with these guys is we're actually going to hunt house sparrows and European starlings. So we're going to use them for invasive species control. Yeah, right? Yeah, so it's really cool. You can actually fly these guys right out your car window. So you can drive through the neighborhoods, look for the starlings sitting on the ground, open your window and let them right out. We're going to have a lot of fun with these two, him and his sister. Now my last favorite fact, we're going to get out one more. Oh, she already got him out, so we're good. My last favorite fact about these guys, though, is that these guys have the ability to hover. So when they're chasing their prey, they'll actually stop and can fly in place if they're kind of keeping an eye on something. And they can, if I can get them to focus, look at this. You might not focus for us. They can keep their head still. He's like, I'm looking at everything right now. Hey, you. If we can get him to keep his head still, might have to wait. Maybe when Maya gets over here with our other bird, he'll start staring at him and I can get him. But I can move his body and his head will stay straight. Yeah. But he's like, there's so much to look at right now. So like I said, he's only been with us for a a week and a day. So he came, like I said, last Thursday, and already through positive reinforcement training, the first couple of days he was pretty scared, but we just offered him food, let him do everything on his own, coming to us, hopping to the glove, and now he can go in front of a group of people and have no problem. So, all right, I'm gonna pass it over to Maya, and she's gonna tell you a few more facts about falcons. You want to? It's up to you.
Maybe not. Who knows what the fastest land animal is? Peregrine falcon, that is absolutely right. Does anybody know what their top speed has been clocked at? 242 miles per hour. You want to know how they figured that out? They took a peregrine falcon up in an airplane, right? Put an altimeter on his leg, so measured time over distance to gauge his speed, and then they threw his favorite toy out the window and went to see how fast he could swoop to catch it, and they got him at 242 miles per hour. They think that that was limited only by the height that they were flying at. They think that peregrine falcons could potentially go faster than that, but that they might eventually lose control. So, as you can imagine, everything about a falcon is designed for speed. So, I'll show you a few things on our plane. Freddy here, Freddy the peregrine falcon. You can see to start, his wings are so long that they actually cross over behind his back. That in itself is an adaptation to speed. Also, his body is kind of hard to see here with his hood on, but his head is a little smaller and he has a very nice, sleek, teardrop-shaped body. That is also an adaptation to speed. And if you look at his feet, you'll see he's got long, skinny toes, super sharp talons. So, how would you catch something in midair without breaking little skinny toes like that? Well, he doesn't catch it right away. He will punch his prey midair, called a falcon punch. They think that it has about enough force as that of a heavyweight boxer. So he punches him, and then goes back and catches him with those long, skinny toes that are designed for grabbing onto the feathers. So Freddy, being a falcon, would feed on mostly songbirds and other very small birds like pigeons. Yeah, I love pigeons. Let's see if I can get this set off for you.
Maya, before you take the hood off, wrap the rope around your fingers.
And also, it's kind of hard to see with the hood on, but he has a little extra conical bone in his, what's that? Yeah, of course. He has an extra bone in his nose that's shaped like a cone. It's kind of hard to see, but it's right inside of his nostril, and that is to help with airflow, so that when he is going 240 miles per hour, he doesn't have too much air in his lungs. So it's for breathing control. And also, on his beak, this isn't about speed, it's just an extra fun fact about falcons. He has an extra notch inside of his beak, and that is at the perfect distance so that when he grabs his prey, he can use that notch to sever the spinal cord of the prey that he's eating. So he doesn't have to worry about grasping it or crushing it. He can just use that little notch and just flick right through. And now he's ready.
But I'm not a bird.
Oh, there he is. So, something fun about Freddy in particular is that he is not a purebred peregrine falcon. He's about a quarter gyrfalcon. So he's a little bit bigger, and he has this really pretty light slate color on his back instead of just that solid dark gray that you see on peregrines. And his mallard streaks are a little different. Does anyone know what these black stripes underneath his eyes are for? Yes, it's to cut glare from the sun, so that he can see his prey better and catch it with more accuracy. How much does he weigh? Quite big.
He weighs probably 900 grams. I know grams are scary, but there's 454 grams in a pound. So he weighs just over 2 pounds. Anybody got any questions about the peregrine? I know we're here with the Raptor Resource, and that's like the thing. Yeah. She was asking why do they nest on these power plants? Why do they nest on buildings, right? Their native nesting site is a cliff face. And the ledge of a skyscraper is a perfect cliff. So they have adapted perfectly to living in Chicago and New York, all these big cities, because they love to eat pigeons. It's one of their favorite foods. And they've actually adapted over time of living in big cities to actually hunt closer to dusk, and then they hunt right underneath the street lights, because that concentrates the pigeons because of the bugs. So, any other questions out there about kestrels or peregrines? How old is Freddie? Freddie's like 4.5-ish. Yeah. And that one's like 4 weeks. Yeah, so he was a falconry bird at one time, and unfortunately somewhere along the line he did get hurt. He sprained one of his wings, and then the vets that we take him to said, so we do still fly him, but he will gain arthritis faster in that one shoulder the harder we work him. So he's on like a semi-early retirement at 4 years old. Yeah, he gets an extra pigeon leg every once in a while for retirement benefit. Yeah, so his question is, do we have to feed him fresh meat? Do we have to feed these guys fresh animals? And the answer is, I'd love to, but it's just not economical for me to keep a big coop full of pigeons and pens full of rabbits and all this other stuff. So for the most part, we do feed frozen thawed food, and we get it donated to us. We purchase a lot of it. The main thing we feed is a lot of rabbit, just because we have a very big source of rabbit for us that somebody donates. They breed for 4-H, and the ones that don't make roster for 4-H, he just donates to us, and that's our meal ticket there. But we buy lots of rats, we buy quail, and like doing all these programs basically goes into feeding these birds. We don't even get paid on the whole deal. So it goes right back into the Raptors and their equipment. So. These little kestrels are growing up. They're getting that famous kestrel tail bob here. Their tail gets a little longer. Yeah, unfortunately, populations of kestrels throughout the country have been declining over the last years. Yeah.
Why? Why is that?
Insecticide use is a big one. These guys eat about 90% of their diet can be insects.
Insecticide use, habitat loss, and name it by how many things that humans impact for.
So it'll be important for him to get back out and be part of the breeding population in a couple of years here.
That's why we focus on sparrows and starlings, because there's no shortage of them.
So young.
Well, that's just, she's asking when we our window after a sparrow, or after a starling, how do we gain that confidence that he's going to come back, right?
And then eat the sparrow in the front seat of your car.
Yeah. You don't want to ride in the front seat of our car. But so it's all just approximations, right? So I don't start trying to call them from that truck. I start trying to call them from this close. And you gain that relationship and build up the distance and what they come. And pretty soon, over a course of a week, I can have them jumping across a football field or flying to me across the football field. And then it's just transferring that into, okay, going out after a sparrow, if he doesn't get it, training him just to make the loop and come back to the car. And if he gets it, hopefully I can stop the car fast enough and jump out. Or just jump out and hope for the best of the car. But.
So you carry little pieces of raw or whatever?
Yep, when we're all hunting, I got a pocket full of raw cut up meat on me at all times. Yep, just as treats. And the red tail I flew last year, she was so good, I kept her for 4 years. I didn't have to have her fly to me. She'd just fly past. I could throw pieces of food up in the air, and she would catch them and go land on the next branch, and then just keep going. She didn't have to come down to me anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The kestrel population being affected by the Cooper hawk growing population.
Yep, that's one of the things too. Kestrels are little snacks for Cooper's hawks, unfortunately. I've known people that have hunted kestrels and have Cooper's hawks try to come take them right off their glove. That's how bold the Cooper's hawk is. But yeah, the increase of urbanization, Cooper's hawks love little woodlots in towns and cities, and they're predators to kestrels. So there's a whole bunch of things that kind of interweave there to not have the kestrel be. Luckily in Wisconsin, this upper Midwest, we're kind of a good stronghold for kestrels. We got enough wildlands left that they're doing pretty good up here. Not so much like in the center part of the U.S., but we're doing pretty good. But we do got one more bird we got to get to, so we're going to shift into that motion there. The last bird, we've seen a hawk, we've seen a falcon. I couldn't bring my eagle because he's still in training, like Abby said. What's the last type of raptor we got to see? Owls, yeah. Everybody's excited about these owls. There's a big owl craze that has been going on for years and years. Well, we like to take a second to just learn about why owls are so much different. If there's even contemplating not... Hi. Are you going to play the crowd here? Are you going to talk? No? There's even contemplating not even having owls and hawks and falcons in the same family. They're just so different from each other, right? So they do have a couple of different adaptations that make them different than, say, the hawks and the falcons. The one you can see right on their feet. All owls have some kind of feathering on their toes, right? One of the major reasons they have feathers on their toes, it serves a couple of different purposes. One, it helps dampen sound when they fly. But two, when the most owls hunt at night, so they wear a pair of socks. As compared to, say, like a red tail, that just has like a scaly foot. The next one has to do with their eyes, right? Look at the size of eye sockets this snowy owl has. And owls' eyes are actually so big, they need bony plates around their eyes to hold them into their skull. Okay? That gives them all that power to gather all that light at nighttime and be able to see in low light situations. So they have just such bigger eyes than the other ones. And then, have you guys all heard that owls, they fly silently? Right, they have that silent flight capability, which is totally awesome. But do you guys know why? You know how it works? You're going to learn. Yeah, it has to do with the feather structure, and then actually how all the feathers are made. So I have a red-tailed hawk feather and a great horned owl feather. A little bit different placement on the wing, that's why they look a little bit different, but they overall are the same basic shape. If you look at them this way, they're curved like an airplane wing. Right? And overall very, very similar to each other. But it's in the way this feather is designed and how soft this feather is. A red-tailed hawk feather is actually relatively stiff and relatively hard, if you can call a feather hard. Right? Whereas the great horned owl feather, this feather is very flexible in terms of how it is, and especially this way on the veins of the feather. So I'm going to flap this feather, and we're going to see if we can hear it. And don't worry, I got a bigger demonstration if you can't hear it. So, you hear it flapping? Yeah. That's actually the feather. When they flap, This feather is actually catching the wind and flipping. That's what's making that sound. Now I'm going to flap the owl feather, and we're going to see if we can hear it. You don't hear it because this feather bends with the wind, okay? And it's got little ridges on the bottom of it that help cut that turbulence and make the sound. Here's my bigger demonstration. I got a hawk feather and an owl feather. Now they're paint sticks, so don't get carried away. This isn't some exotic species of owl. But they work exactly the same way. They're the same shape, the same size, but what's different? The owl one's softer and it's got these ridges on it, right? Whereas this red-tailed hawk one is harder, it's a little bit stiffer. So we'll spin this one. I can get it going. Come on. I gotta get it spinning right. There it goes. Oh my God. Right, but what's the feather doing? It's catching air and it's spinning. So let's get this other one going. And no matter how, even if I started out spinning, I see how hard it is for me to swing it? Because it's catching air and it's not spinning that much. That's how owls' wings are designed. Isn't that cool? One of my favorite spots. Now I'm going to kick it over to Abby to bring out something even cooler, and that's our friend the owl.
Alright, so again, I know Wisconsin species. But we have 11 different species of owls in Wisconsin, and this here is the smallest that we have. Just here's pulling at him. There we go. Who knows what kind of owl this is? Solid owl, that's right. Now, you might notice he doesn't necessarily look like an adult solid owl, and that is because Darwin, or new name might be Winnie, Darwin may be a girl, is only, let's see, April, May, June, 3 months old. He is about 3 months. Alright, but before we get into why we have her, as you can see, she's got those feathers all the way down to her toes. She's got that big eyes, you can see, that are fixed inside of her head. And you might notice that she has what's called a facial disc. And so that's actually going to be able to help her hear. Now, I wasn't totally paying attention to what Joe was saying, so if I repeat information, I'm sorry. But even though owls have really large eyes, they actually rely more on their hearing than they do on their eyesight. And so that facial disc actually helps grab sound and send it to those ears. Now, the cool thing about owls, though, is instead of having symmetrical ears like we do, they actually have an ear up high face forward and an ear down low face backwards. This allows them to collect sound from all over and do something called triangulation. So when you're watching maybe a video of an owl and they're kind of bobbing their head up and down, what they're doing is they're collecting that sound and triangulating. So they're able to find their prey just by hearing it. Now, barn owls have the best hearing out of any lab-tested animal, including humans. Their hearing is so good that they can detect that tiny mouse under 2 feet of snow. Figure out where that mouse is, crash in the snow and grab it with their feet without ever having to see it, just by hearing it. So that hearing is extremely important, which is another reason why they have that silent flight. If you can imagine that sound that those feathers make and you're trying to hear that tiny little mouse, you're not going to be able to hear that mouse over the sound of your own feathers. So that hearing and that silent flight kind of work together with that. What are you looking at? All right. So you also notice that it's a very flexible neck. And so those eyes are so big, they are fixed inside their head. And so they're able to turn their head and look 270 degrees all the way over their other shoulder. So not quite all the way around. I'm sorry, he's one of our newest birds, and we were trying to like figure out which ones to put him. I'm like, well, I guess you're riding in the big box today. Now the 11 species that we have, at least in Wisconsin, are the saw-whet as the smallest. Then we have the screech, the short-eared owl, the long-eared owl, the barn owl and the barred owl, the great horned, the snowy, the great gray, the boreal owl, and the northern hawk owl. So those are the 11 that you'd be able to find in Wisconsin. I suppose maybe the great gray and the boreal probably don't make it as far south as Iowa. Now the reason we actually have Darwin and the reason I know her exact age is because Darwin actually hatched right at our facility at our house. So we are involved in an organization called the International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators. It's an association devoted to the care of any type of bird that has to be in captivity. So they're constantly doing studies on how to best care for the birds, how to best train the birds, and how to best educate with the birds. And so Joe and I are always staying up to date on the best way we can care for any bird that is in our care. And one of the things they've recently discovered is that owls who are injured as adults don't adapt well to captivity. They actually did a study on the cortisol levels, the stress levels that were in them. And because they're a nocturnal animal, it was really very hard for them to adapt. But owls that came in as babies or very, very young did excellent. They were just fine, and especially if they were what we call imprinted on people. So if a baby was raised by a person instead of by their parent and they imprinted on people, they were able to adapt and spend their whole lives in captivity with very little sign of stress. And so his parents were both injured out in the wild. His dad actually ran into a window and had a head injury, and his mom was most likely hit by a car, and she had a wing injury. And so they weren't able to go back out into the wild. And so when they came to our facility, we could tell that no matter how much training we did with them, they did not get comfortable in front of people. So we were able to pair them up. And now they're part of a breeding program that we have going on at our facility, where instead of doing programs, they just get to breed and have babies. And this year was our first year. They graced us with 2 little baby saw-whet owls. So when they were about a week old, we were able to take them out of the nest box and hand raise them so that they would be comfortable in front of people. Now her sister probably, actually got sent to Eugene, Oregon to the Cascades Raptor Center. They're actually the facility that did the study on owls, and they're the facility that got us his parents. So in return, they got to get the second baby that hatched with us, and now her name is Maple now, and she gets to be an ambassador for her species over in Oregon. And Darwin will get to stay with us and be an ambassador here for his species. They joined our family on Earth Day. That's where he gets the name Darwin, and his sister used to be named Frances after Fran Hammerstrom. But they got to rename her. So I'm going to walk him around. And actually, before I do, a couple last things to talk about that we should always talk about at our program is what you guys can do to help wildlife. So there's a lot of things you guys can do, really easy at home. Of course, we talked about the use of insecticide. So not only refraining from using insecticides, but planting native gardens in your own yard to attract native wildlife, native insects, pollinators. All of that is going to be really great. If you don't want to mow your lawn anymore, just plant a bunch of native plants, and you're going to be doing a lot to help the environment. Rodenticide, another really big one, especially for owls. If you use poison to kill any of the mice in your house, of course those mice don't die right there. They end up making their way outside, and anything that eats them will get poisoned. So sticking to mouse traps are the best way to get rid of any mice or problems like that. And the last one we would like to talk about, especially with the bald eagle, Tira decora, is lead. So I used to work at a rehab center up in Antigo, Wisconsin, which is where several of our birds came from. And we saw a lot of lead poison cases coming in. whether it was eagles eating deer that had lead in them, or we also got a lot of swans and loons that ate lead sinkers because they would eat the gravel to help digest their food. So switching your bullets over to copper, talk to Joe, he loves them. Or switching over your sinkers from lead sinkers to other different types of material that you can use. And all of that is going to do wonderful, wonderful things to help our wildlife, to keep them safe. So, if you guys have questions, I'm going to pass it to Joe so that I can walk this cute little guy around and you guys can take a closer look at it. I'll start on this side this time. Teal change color a little bit, yeah. So they're kind of like a gray, see these kind of like white spots. He'll get that on his back as well, and he'll loop the brown on his chest, and it'll be like a stripy brown.
Anybody have any questions? Comments? Yeah. Darwin.
Oh yeah, River Valley Raptors. You want to see baby pictures? That's our Facebook page. Blogs, like videos of him on Facebook. He was the cutest.
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I haven't dove into it that much. He was asking like how do they think? Yeah, how do they think owls kind of got derived from their ancient ancestors, right? So how does an owl get all those? That's a good one. Yeah, I do know they think peregrines are related to parrots. Because if you watch a peregrine eat, they'll grab stuff with their foot and hold it like a parrot grabs a nut. So they think somewhere down the line in history, the parrot and the peregrine, like falcons, have split off. And we can even see it in the little kestrels even do it. They'll grab something with their foot and eat it with their foot like a parrot does. Yeah, it could have been a niche thing. Yeah, the environment saw that at nighttime little space there was open, and that's the miracle of Mother Nature. You never know what's going to happen sometimes. Somebody have a question over here? Anybody else? They're too distracted by that little thing.
Yes. I'm still amazed you can get that. That's new PMR. You ever put a roof rack on?
I knew a guy that had a kestrel, and he trained them to actually bring the sparrows back to the car because they're natural cachers, so they'll cache inside the car. And you don't even have to get out of his car. They kill a sparrow and just bring it back.
How many pounds can a red-tailed hawk pick up?
That's a good question. So how many pounds can a red-tailed hawk pick up? How much can they lift off the ground? About a third of their body weight. And a big red-tail for around here, they only weigh about 2.5 pounds, 3 pounds. So most of your little dogs are safe.
They even their talons do like, and then they tear it apart. So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you want to get that nitty gritty, I mean, I'm not saying they can't kill a cat or kill a little dog.
So I'm going to go back to red tails. Are they the same size maybe throughout the United States?
They're bigger and smaller depending on where you are. Yeah.
Like south, are they smaller?
Smaller south, yeah. Probably that's about the size of that.